Hello and welcome back to KeyForge Coffee Break. My name is Cameron Weaver, and I am one of your hosts on the Absolute BSS podcast in casual competitive gaming. And if you're in my Discord or if you listen to the podcast at all, you know how much I love KeyForge. And this is another one of those introductory videos to one of the sets of KeyForge to kind of get new players, that's you, into this game. And just kind of explaining what each set does, what's different about it, what houses are in it, how the gameplay works, and what you can expect. And I'm sorry this was so long after the Set 2 video. I need to finish this series, and that's what I'm here to do today. So Worlds Collide is the third KeyForge set. It was announced at Gen Con on August 2nd, 2019, released on November 8th, 2019. Worlds Collide for me is still one of my favorite sets. I think I had the most fun with it for a lot of reasons. One, this was the first new set after the first year of KeyForge, right? So KeyForge had come out, it was making the rounds, it was making some big waves with the first two sets, and I remember playing in Gen Con, a sealed tournament for Worlds Collide. Or no. I'm sorry. I played sealed AOA. But yeah, it was announced at Gen Con. So I remember going there and like seeing a lot of the promo cards and some of the new stuff. And this was the first set that introduced a brand new house. And in fact, it brought two new houses to the game of KeyForge. So in Worlds Collide, we saw Sanctum and who else? Who else rotated out? Why am I drawing a blank? Sanctum and Mars. There we go. It says right here on Archon Arcana. The first set included two new houses, Saurian and Star Alliance. So this was very exciting for the game, right? We saw some kind of weaker houses in set 2 rotate out and take some time away from the game and back to the lab to draw up some new stuff. And spoiler, Mars and Sanctum have come back since Worlds Collide's release, and they definitely feel like they have a bigger and better place in the Crucible now. But Worlds Collide was crazy for the fact that two brand new houses were introduced, and they were very, very powerful in their initial run. I will cover that here in a little bit, but Worlds Collide is very accessible right now. You can still get these decks at, retail price. Like, this is a very time-tested set. A lot of people really love this one for just some of the very cool combo-y things that it did. The average power level of a Worlds Collide deck seems to be higher than, especially AOA, but even, Dark Tidings doesn't compare to Worlds Collide, and that's the fifth set in a lot of people's eyes. But again, every deck is unique. But this is still a set that I love revisiting. I have a bunch of decks in my personal stable that are from Worlds Collide that I like to play. And I'm going to go over a little bit about why that is. So the house rotation, this was the first set that did it. Once again, new houses came in, old houses rotated out. And with those new houses, we had a lot of new stuff, like the Exalt mechanic and the Ward and Enrage mechanics. So Ward and Enrage are new tokens. Ward basically says the first time this creature would take damage or be removed from play, if it has a ward counter, the ward counter goes away instead. So a little more protection to creatures, a little more board state being built up. Stickier creatures that were capturing Ember were a little harder to kill if you could ward them. And Enrage is a fun mechanic that it's kind of like the stun, where if a creature is stunned and you decide to use them, the only thing you can do with them is remove the stun. Instead, if a creature is enraged, when you go to use them, they have to fight. So it's fun deciding when and how to enrage your opponent's creatures, or even enrage your own. There was a lot of Brobnar cards that said ready and enrage. And we see that continue, especially in Brobnar further on down the line. Anomalies were also introduced in Worlds Collide, and this was the chase, right? So if the chase cards in set 1 were the Horsemen, the big chase cards in set 3 were anomalies. You had a chance to get one of 10 cards that are from future KeyForge sets. This is the perfect example. Grim Reaper was an anomaly in set 3. Now it's just a creature in Grim Reminders. Grim Reaper is just a regular card in the set 7 card pool. But back in the days of Worlds Collide, this was a big deal if you opened a Grim Reaper deck, because it had a completely unique mechanic. It had this really cool design on it, and it could appear in any of the 7 houses because Grim Reaper is not... It's a house Geistoid, which did not exist until very, very recently in the game's career and lifespan. So that's really cool. And you can still go back and buy a Worlds Collide deck. You might get an anomaly. There are 10 of them. I'll go over them. And not all of them have been introduced properly into the game. So it's really cool when you see an anomaly and you get to read some of these effects that don't really exist yet, and get a glimpse into what the future of KeyForge looks like. So that was our first taste of that. Also, there were leaders introduced. So these were powerful creatures that got even more powerful if they were directly in the middle of your battle line. Each house had one leader introduced in this set, and really, most of them are good. Most of them are very good. The only other mechanic that they introduced was in Star Alliance. Part of their identity is that some of their creatures can be played as upgrades, and we'll get to those a little bit later. All of this, again, is here on the Archon Arcana page for Worlds Collide, card distribution, and some other special rarity cards. Some of these were really good. Some of these were really not good. But overall, it makes the collecting and excitement of opening the packs very, very good. And just the wide variety of new stuff was exciting then. And just, again, the power level of this set remains true to this day. So if you have the chance, if you're out and about and you see some Worlds Collide decks, I can't recommend it enough for new players, but also players that have played for a long time. I think you're going to find a deck that really gels with you, depending on your play style. Worlds Collide has a little bit of everything. If you want to, you can check out the competitive success for some of these cards. A lot of these cards that were introduced in Worlds Collide are just so bonkers and have really changed the game in a way that you're still seeing some of these cards introduced in this set in higher level play, like Infernus, a 4-power disc creature that says play, purge up to 2 cards from a discard pile. Your opponent loses Ember equal to the number of bonus icons, Ember bonus icons on the purge cards. So we were seeing decks being opened with multiple copies of Infernus, and it's a really powerful counter to put a body on the board and take down your opponent's Ember pool and purge cards that are very, very powerful and quick to play and quick to get Ember, and just completely remove them from the game. Infernus was a menace, is still kind of a menace. So we're going to just take a quick look at all of the cards in Worlds Collide. Where is there's a better way to do this. Where do I get there? Hold on. So sorry. Worlds Collide. No. There's a page. Stick with me here. I want to just get the whole card pool. This is why I need to learn how to edit my videos, because I'm just sitting here looking like a fool trying to get... There we go. Card gallery. All right, so we're going to the Worlds Collide card gallery. And let's start with the anomalies, right? So again, these are 10 cards that you can get in Worlds Collide with this very cool border, and they're like future Mavericks. So Ghost Form, for example, we still... No, this was introduced... No, yeah, it's an anomaly in Winds of Exchange too. So this is a card from a future set that we don't have yet, but you can get it as an anomaly in either Worlds Collide or one of the later sets, Winds of Exchange. It's an upgrade with an Ember Pip, and it gives the invulnerable trait, meaning a creature that has it cannot be destroyed or dealt damage. But that creature gains after fight, after reap, you archive Ghost Form. So it's powerful. It's really, really cool. And it makes for some bonkers combos, but we don't really know the source of it, which is very funny. Infomancer is another one. This is a very fun one. This is a human cyborg creature from some unknown house. It shows up again as anomalies in Worlds Collide and Winds of Exchange. It's elusive, and you can graft an action card from your hand onto it, meaning you play it face up under this card, and after Reap, you trigger the play effect of an action card grafted onto Infomancer. So this card being introduced in Worlds Collide with a lot of those ward counters makes this very, very powerful if you have the right cards surrounding it. You can essentially keep this on the board, keep putting actions underneath it, and every time you Reap with it, you get to use any of those action cards underneath it as if you played it from your hand, excluding the bonus icons on it. But Infomancer can just gain the printed ability of any action card and turn it into an after Reap ability, and that's pretty insane. Lateral Shift, very powerful card. Look at your opponent's hand and play a card from it as if it were yours. That's always good. You get information there. Memolith is another graft card, but this is an artifact this time. As an action, you can graft a card underneath it, or trigger the play effect of an action card grafted underneath it. So the way I'm looking at this, I feel like Memolith and Infomancer are going to exist in the same set, probably in the same future house. Might be logos, might be something different. We don't know. This is one of my favorites, Nizak the Forgotten. This is a dragon scion creature, and while fighting it gains invulnerable, like ghost form. But after an enemy creature is destroyed fighting Nizak, you return that creature to the owner's hand instead of the discard pile. Orb of Wonder we saw printed in Mass Mutation as a Sanctum card. But in Worlds Collide, it was an anomaly because Sanctum is not in that house or in that set. As an Omni, you can sacrifice it, search your deck for a card, add it to your hand. That's pretty good. Grim Reaper, we talked about already. If you are haunted, the Grim Reaper's enter plays ready. So enters play ready. You're haunted if there are 10 or more cards in your discard pile. Haunted is the main mechanic and the main theme of the recent Set 7 release, Grim Reminders. But back in Worlds Collide, Grim Reaper is the only card that checked for haunted. But on Reap, purge an enemy creature and a friendly creature. He comes in ready if you're haunted. Haunted exists no matter what. Technically exists even if you're not playing Grim Reminders decks, as explained by here. Then we move on to the Red Baron. This is a cyborg pirate Sky Baron creature, which is the new set revealed recently, Ember Skies. So the next set coming up later this year is going to have a new house called Sky Baron, and Red Baron is one of those. So back in Worlds Collide days, Red Baron really caused a stir in the community because of its ability. While your red key is forged, the Red Baron gains Reap Steal 1. While your opponent's red key is forged, the Red Baron gains Elusive. So key color actually mattering in a game of KeyForge, where really you're forging two different colored keys over the course of a game. The speculation and the idea of that key color mattering for both you and your opponent is very, very interesting. And so infamously, during Worlds Collide and beyond, and still right now, because we don't have these Sky Baron cards yet, typically players will not forge their red key first, just in case Red Baron shows up in a Worlds Collide deck or a Winds of Exchange deck. Last two here. Timequake is an action card. Shuffle each friendly card in play into your deck. Draw a card for each card shuffled into your deck this way. So kind of like a self board wipe, but a return and kind of looking for, I don't know, just some kind of reset. It's an interesting card. I'd like to see it with more context, like whenever it shows up, outside of being an anomaly. And then finally, Valucanth. This is a 6-power Aquan creature that worries about the tide, which is a mechanic introduced in Set 5. So in Set 3 here, as an anomaly in Worlds Collide, the tide is neither high or low. So Valucanth could always be used in Worlds Collide because the tide isn't there unless a Dark Tidings deck is on the field. So a little different than Grim Reminder there, or Grim Reaper. But as a fight Reap, exhaust an enemy creature and each of its neighbors if Valucanth lives. So those are the 10 anomaly cards that you might find in Worlds Collide. Now we have to address the NARP in the room. Worlds Collide Brobnar is very infamous for being just... what's the opposite of power creep, you know? They start out so strong in Call of the Archons, right? Even in Age of Ascension, you get some cool combos like Gengar, Chieftain, and Drummerknot. In this set, you get really rough cards, some really good cards, but then the rest just aren't that good. So one of the special rarities in this set was the brew cards. So certain giants had their own brew, which then gave them their own enhanced version of themselves, I guess. So if you had a mega version of a giant in your deck, you would also have the brew that goes along with it. And the brews just get you an ember, and they can power up some of your creatures. They're not terrible, but Brobnar just kind of lost their identity a little bit. And the biggest offender of that is Narp. Narp is a creature... where is Narp? Let's bring up Narp. I saw Mega Narp. I can't find Narp, but we'll just look at Mega Narp. Mega Narp is a 10 power, 1 armor creature. Regular Narp has 8 power, 1 armor. And both Narp and Mega Narp say that their neighbors cannot reap. That's bad. Taking away reap is rough. He's just permanently enraging his neighbors. And for what, right? Regular Narp is 8 power, 1 armor, and it has that giant setback. We've seen this with Age of Ascension. They brought out Groggins, who is 8 power, can only attack flank creatures, where Troll in Call of the Archons was 8 power and had an After Reap ability that could heal 3 damage from it. So you just slowly degrade, and no one has really forgiven FFG for Narp and just the Brobnar house in general. There's Narp. But Brobnar in this set still tries to do what it wants to do in the other sets, just doesn't do it as well. They want to fight. They want to control your opponent's board. Every now and then you'll get a good list, though. And the problem is there are just a lot of bad commons in this pool. So people really did not like seeing Brobnar in their Worlds Collide decks. Dis, however, still pretty powerful. There were some weird cards like these Bane cards, which typically ended up just... you would be destroying your own creatures. For whatever reason, the algorithm really loved putting in like Beast Bane, destroy a beast creature, in a deck where you have Untamed, or Dinosaur's Bane in a deck where you have Saurian. So these look cool and are fun for the collector in me, but they're not that impactful to the game. However, some other cards that are very impactful to the game were introduced in this set, like our boy in Furnace that we talked about earlier. So once again, purge up to 2 cards from a discard pile. Your opponent loses Ember equal to the number of bonus Ember icons on the purge card. In Furnace sees a lot of play, casually, competitively. It's just a very good card. One of the leaders in the set, Lord Invidious. So this is a leader trait, which means if it's in the middle of your battle line, you get to do some cool shit. So Lord Invidious is 5 power, elusive, and while it's in the center, it gains After Reap. Take control of an enemy flank creature and exhaust it. While under your control, it belongs to Dis. We saw a lot of really fun new destroyed effects, like Imp Spectre. Destroyed, your opponent purges a random card from their hand. That's very good, especially when you pair it with cards like Obsidian Forge. This is a key cheat in Dis that says destroy any number of friendly creatures. You may forge a key at +6 cost, reduced by 1 for each creature destroyed this way. If you forge a key this way, destroy Obsidian Forge. Dis is just good. We love Dis. We miss Dis. We hope that Dis comes back soon. Over in Logos, man, you've got one of the strongest and most efficient houses in the game. Really, truly. We see the production of Edai, or Eddie, 4x4. On play, archive a card. While Eddie's in play, your opponent's keys cost +1 for each card in your archives. So not only is that good for moving through your deck, it's good for stalling your opponent down. It's a common, so you're going to see it in multiples. and it's just a really quick way to turn your opponent off of check for at least a turn. And with all the warding in this set, it's really easy to keep it alive. Like Hologramophone's just an artifact that says action, ward a creature. Daughter was introduced in Worlds Collide. This is the answer to Mother's power creep, a 5-power creature with the same ability. This is a 2-power creature with elusive that says during your draw card step, refill your hand to 1 additional card. Again, it comes in at common. You might see multiple copies giving you multiple stacks of Ember there. We saw the special rare Hide and Vellum. They will always show up in a deck together if one of them is there. And they work well together. So Hide says Reap, draw a card. If you control Vellum, draw 2 instead. And on destroyed, archive Vellum from your discard pile and archive Hide. So let's just take a look at Vellum real quick. Vellum says Reap, archive a card. If you control Hide, archive 2 instead. Destroyed, archive Hide from your discard pile. If you do, archive Vellum. And their artwork matches up, so that's really cool. Another thing that Worlds Collide did really well are those special rare cards that just made opening decks even a lot more fun. So Logos does exactly what you'd expect it to do. There's a lot of efficiency, a lot of draw power. Their leader Zenzik says while it's in the middle of your battle line, you draw 2 additional cards during your draw step. So if you flank Zenzik with 2 daughters, you're drawing 4 additional cards every turn. That's very good. In Saurian, first of all, this is my favorite house in the game. Maybe Geistoid is now that Grim Reminders is coming out and the dust is settling there, but Worlds Collide Saurian had me so excited to play KeyForge again. This specific card list is the strongest they've ever been, and it's still fun opening a Worlds Collide deck and seeing that Saurian symbol. We've got crazy cards in here that just ward like crazy. One other mechanic I didn't mention is the Exalt mechanic, and that plays a big deal here. So let's take a look at Grimlock's Ducks. 11 power, 2 armor, taunt, and when you play it, you Exalt Grimlock's Ducks twice. What that means is, for each Exalt, you take an Ember from the common supply and put it on top of Grimlock's Ducks. It's different from capturing, as capture comes from your opponent's pool, but it's the same that when that creature leaves play, the Ember on it goes back to your opponent's pool. So it's a risk-reward system that Saurian introduces in Worlds Collide. But in Worlds Collide specifically, the risk usually is not nearly as bad as the reward is good. And there are plenty of cards to mitigate that risk, like this upgrade Imperial Scudam. Not only do you get an Ember pip for playing it, but the creature you attach it to gets +2 armor and gains the destroyed effect. Move each Ember on this creature to the common supply. So that means if Grimlock's Ducks comes into play and exalts twice, and you put Scudam on it, somehow Grimlock's Ducks is destroyed in battle, or let's say more commonly, a board wipe like Gateway to Disc kills Grimlock's Ducks. That Ember on Grimlock's does not go to your opponent. It goes back to the common supply. So you just got a big, buff, powerful creature for no downsides. The only way you get around that is if you bounce that creature to your opponent's hand with cards like Lights Out. That Ember will then go back to your opponent. However, Ward prevents bouncing, and there's a lot of good Ward cards at common in this card pool, like Imperium. Just ward 2 friendly creatures. They're not leaving play. And what are you going to do with all that Ember sitting on your dinosaurs? Well, you're going to activate Library of Polyosaurus every turn to move 1 Ember from a friendly creature to your pool. That also works with capturing. If you find a way to capture, like with Odoak the Patrician, play capture 1. Library, move it right to your pool. However, Odoak also says, while it has Ember on it, your Ember cannot be stolen. Praefectus Ludo is a common creature that says each other friendly creature gains destroyed. Move each Ember from this creature to the common supply. Orator Hisaro, deploy, play it ready, and exalt each of Orator Hisaro's neighbors. For the remainder of the turn, they belong to House Saurian. So you're putting Ember on creatures, but you get to use creatures out of house. It's just ridiculous. And then Senator Shrix, you may spend Ember on Shrix as if it were in your pool. Play, and after Reap, you may exalt Senator Shrix. See what I mean? Are the wheels turning? Do you understand how amazing this set is? Senator Brachus is a rare, but it says you may spend Ember on all friendly creatures as if it were in your pool. And Tribute is a huge swingy Ember control card at common in this set. It's only printed in Worlds Collide because of how busted it is. You get an Ember. The most powerful friendly creature captures 2 Ember. You may exalt that creature to repeat the preceding effect, meaning 5 Ember would be sitting on it. And then you just slap the Calipigian Ideal on it, and you may spend Ember on this creature as if it were in your pool. It just works so well. It also introduced, I think, 3 different key cheats. You have Triumph. If there are no enemy creatures, exalt each friendly creature. If you do, and there are 6 or more friendly creatures, forge a key at no cost. Are you kidding me? The Saurian lineup is just so good. Even their board wipe is based off of Ember being on creatures and warding. You can ward any creature and then destroy each creature with no Ember on it for only 2 chains. I just can't say enough about how good the cards in this Saurian set list are, and just how much they synergize with each other. And it's so fun. One final combo I want to talk about real quick that's easy to pull off is that Tribute, which again captures onto your biggest creature, right? Where is it? Where is it? I don't see it. There it is. 6 Semper Tyrannis. Move each Ember from the most powerful creature to your pool and destroy that creature. So typically what that means is you're tributing onto, say, Grimlock's Dux, who's 11 power. Then you sack him, but you take all that Ember on him. So he comes in and exalts twice. Tribute can capture up to 4 and exalt onto it. So that's 7 Ember. You play 6 Semper, you move it all to your pool, and all you have to do is give up 1 guy. That happens more often than you'd think. So Saurian, I think, is definitely my favorite house in this set. One of the best, undeniably. And now we move into Shadows. Shadows does exactly what they want to be doing in other sets that you see them in. They steal. They're mean. They steal. So Bren the Fanatic, we saw him in Age of Ascension. On play, you give your opponent an Ember, but if you can find a way to destroy him, you steal 3. Breaker Hill is a new card with the ability to give its neighbors action steal 1. And some really fun artifacts were introduced in this Shadow House that we did see this one reprinted in Mass Mutation. This is Gambling Den. It's one of those. So I would say Worlds Collide did a really good job at introducing these types of passive artifacts that affect both players in a very fun way. So Gambling Den says, at the start of each player's turn, that player may choose a house. If they do, reveal the top card of their deck. If it is of the named house, they gain 2 Ember. Otherwise, they lose 2 Ember. And here's why this is so fun. At the start of each player's turn, meaning you can do this and your opponent can, but at the start of each player's turn means that this happens before you forge a key. Before your forge a key step, this ability triggers, meaning, let's say you have 6. You're in check, right? At the start of your turn, this ability would trigger. You can ignore it. You go to your forge a key step. You spend 6. The cost is 6. You forge a key. Everything's good. Let's say at the start of your turn, you had 4 Ember. Gambling Den says you can decide to choose a house. If you reveal it, you get 2 Ember. You get up to 6. You forge a key. But you could also lose that Ember. Gambling Den, it is possible to come in multiples. So you can do that effect more than once. In fact, if you get it right the first time, you are guaranteed to know what it is the second time. If you miss it the first time, you're still guaranteed to know what it is the second time because that card just stays on top of your deck. So multiple Gambling Dens make for really fun interactions as well. We're going to talk more about these. I'm trying to think, like, symmetrical artifacts, I guess you could call them. Keyforgery is definitely asymmetrical, but this card is crazy. It was only printed in Worlds Collide. It's one of the only cards that can prevent the forge a key step from firing. When your opponent would forge a key on their turn, actually at any time, that player names a house, reveal a random card from your hand. If that card is not of the named house, destroy Keyforgery, and they do not forge that key. No Ember is spent. So that can save you that one extra turn that you need to change the tide of battle, especially because it's in Shadows, and Shadows has a way of being very swingy. Ronnie Wrist Clocks is back. We love that card. Too Much to Protect is back because that is just a staple and one of the best cards printed. Wait, I think Too Much to Protect is back. I'm not seeing it. Yeah, there it is. And then this version of Shadows introduced the plants, which I think are thematically very cool, but they're not that good, especially with the introduction of damage pips in set 4, which I'll explain in a different video. But these are plants for each of the other 6 houses. They always show up in their version in a deck where you have that other house. So, for instance, Untamed Plant would show up in your deck where you have Shadows in Untamed. And it's a 1-power elusive creature that just says, after a player chooses Untamed as their active house, gain 1. So you can trigger that, but if your opponent is Untamed, you can also trigger that on their turn as well. And so there's a plant for Brobnar, Dis, Logos, Saurian, and Star Alliance. And that feels like the ambassadors from Age of Ascension, right? In Sanctum. So now we're getting into Star Alliance, the second new house introduced to the game of KeyForge. Very Star Trek-y feel, right? It's that everyone's welcome. We're going to bring in creature traits from other houses and put them into ours. We're going to... This Star Alliance, their whole identity really is house cheating and just efficiency. So imagine in Worlds Collide where you have this house that lets you play cards from other houses, and then you have a house in your deck like Logos that just lets you draw a bunch of cards. You're moving through the deck very powerfully. You're building your board wide, and all just on these bonkers play effects like Comm Officer Kirby, everybody's favorite Star Alliance human. At common, after play, fight, and reap, you may play a non-Star Alliance artifact, upgrade, or action card this turn. Captain Val Jericho, another leader. While she's in the middle of your battle line, you can play any card that is not of the active house during your turn. Commander Chan, after fight, after reap, use another friendly creature. It's ridiculous. CXO Tabor, after fight, after reap, you may play or use a non-Star Alliance card this turn. He's at uncommon, but Chan is at common. Another thing they introduced with Star Alliance is a bunch of more upgrades and uses for them. So a lot of the crew in Star Alliance have their own blaster. That's when it's attached to them, it does something specific to them. A little disappointed that the art is not different, like the plants and everything like that. But it was fun to find the officer with their blaster. Let's get to the transporter platform. This is a really big card. So, like I mentioned earlier, in Star Alliance, you can also play some creatures as upgrades, and Transporter Platform really brings that whole concept together. As an action, you can return a friendly creature and each upgrade attached to it to their owner's hand. Meaning, you can play a card like Kirby, get its play effect, put a blaster on it, get that card's play effect, and the Ember Pip. And let's say we'll put Cloaking Dongle on Kirby as well, get another Ember Pip. Tap that transporter platform, bounce them all back to your hand, play them back down, meaning Kirby comes back in. You get to play another non-Star Alliance card. You get to put that blaster back on Kirby, get that Ember Pip, and you get to put the Cloaking Dongle back on Kirby and get that Ember Pip. So it just snowballs and gets very, very powerful and very, very bursty very quickly. You also have staples like Sensor Chief Garcia, who has been printed in every set since, except Dark Tidings, it looks like, for some reason. But Sensor Chief Garcia says, play after fight after reap. Keys cost +2 during your opponent's next turn. So really good common key cost control there. Stealth mode is just a reprint of Scrambler Storm, basically, but in Star Alliance, play. Your opponent cannot play actions during their next turn. Very crippling card, very powerful. And this is another infamous card in this set, one of my personal favorites, Quixelstone. This is a very KeyForge card. It just says, if a player controls more creatures than their opponent, they cannot play creatures. Meaning, let's say I play my Quixelstone and my opponent has 3 creatures and I have none. That means I can play up to 4 creatures before Quixelstone turns on. Or I can just play one or a couple, and my opponent then cannot play any more creatures because they would have more than me. Quixelstone is just on while it's on the field. You get an Ember for playing it, and it's a really big kind of skill test, and it just changes every game of KeyForge when it hits the table. I'm obsessed with it. I think it's really, really fun. And that's Star Alliance's whole deal. They just want to work together, use the cards outside of turn, and that makes for some very powerful combos. And finally, we have Untamed. Nothing new here, really. They're the burst house still. You know, they've got those extra pips, but look out for Infernus. They've got the key charge. Some cool stuff that they introduced here, though, would be their leader, Eldest Bear, has Assault 3, and while it's in the center of the battle fight, it gains, before fight, gain 2 Ember. So you've got Ghost Hawk in here. Another card that says deploy, play, you may reap with each neighboring creature one at a time. So more house cheating. That's what Worlds Collide did really well. We see it the most in Star Alliance, but you're still seeing it in other houses. And it just makes the decks more fun, right? You're playing more cards, you're using more cards. It's a little bit faster. The boards are stickier. It's more dynamic. And that's really it. Untamed is still pretty similar to, I would say, its predecessor here, Age of Ascension, but I think Worlds Collide list is a little bit better. You have a few duds, but then you have crazy special rare cards like Xenos Blood Shadow, a 4-power creature with elusive, hazardous 6, poison, and skirmish. The only downside is that when it shows up in your deck, you get a Toad, who's a 1-power creature that just cannot reap, but there are still ways to pair that with other houses like this. You know, you can sacrifice Toad to do something powerful. Xenos Blood Shadow is just a really good trade-off there. You still got Mimicry in this deck to mimic your opponent's discard pile, and it makes Ember and it forges keys quickly. And that's kind of it. So TLDR right here at the end of it, I would say the best houses, Logo Story and Star Alliance. This is the first set to introduce new houses since the beginning of the game, and they both came in really, really hot. So I can't recommend picking up Worlds Collide enough, because it's still fun. It still slaps, and I still love opening Worlds Collide decks. That's going to do it for this episode of KeyForge Coffee Break. And in the next one, we'll be looking at Mass Mutation, the 4th set in KeyForge. And yeah, that's a good one. Spoiler alert, Mass Mutation is really, really good. And definitely sees high-level play still. But we'll dive into why you should check out Mass Mutation in that next video. Join our Discord, Absolute BSS, Casual Competitive Gaming, where we talk about mostly Battle Spirit Saga by Bandai Namco, but that's why I'm putting this up, because we're talking about KeyForge too. We're talking about all the games that we love, and I love KeyForge. So this is a series for newer players who are getting into the game, just to get an idea of what each set does, what each house does in each of those sets, and I'm excited to tell you more and invite you to this wacky world of the Crucible. So if you see Worlds Collide out in the wild, pick up a deck or two. I think you're going to find that it holds up very, very well, and there's just a lot of fun within this set. So I'm Cameron. We'll catch you in the next KeyForge Coffee Break. Until then, have fun looking around the channel. Check out some videos. Give us a like. Give us a sub. And again, join the Discord so we can talk some more about all the card games that we love. Goodbye.